It was a comment left on our YouTube. And so remember we were did like that episode about John and we were talking about R'hllor from Adam Boris saying, I'm not anywhere close to you two in the series, but two thoughts popped into my head as you were talking about Melisandre. Is it discussed as to how the visions in the flame work? Could R'hllor just be moving her on the board in a position to help Jon, knowing he is marshaling strength in the far north? This assumes R'hllor has some levels of foresight as a god. Sure, she saw Stannis, but it was just to get her moving. Two, is George R. R. Martin, or could he be ready to flip this? Like, the religion following R'hllor has been unknowingly doing the evil god's work, or some other twist, like Jimmy mentioned, the White Walkers being the good guys, or maybe Azor Ahai is Kellis in Second Apocalypse and just isn't the savior everyone thinks he is.
Adam, thank you so much for this, by the way. I like both of these questions because it makes us question like R'hllor and God's places in Westeros. I love the theory that it's really just like one god and each religion kind of gets a little bit of it correct. So R'hllor 100% could be moving Melisandre in a way and manipulating her to put her close to Jon without showing her everything. Like that's definitely on the table, right? Because gods are supposed to be like these unfathomable beings that we can't understand.
And that is really the interesting thing with these gods, because I'm actually working on a new TikTok right now talking about like who is going to be the villain of A Song of Ice and Fire. Because we brought this up before, like the idea of, well, you know, it may be Euron, and Euron has this connection to the God's Eye. It might be Bran, might be Bloodraven because of the Great Other. And Melisandre does look into the flames and sort of views that person as an enemy. And as we're getting ready to talk to about this Daenerys chapters, which we have for today, like it's one of those things where Melisandre is over in Westeros in the cold, up at the wall talking about R'hllor. And I think we sort of view it more so with like, well, we view like Melisandre versus the White Walkers and Jon versus them. But sometimes I think it's important to try and view some of these Daenerys chapters, R'hllor, and the possible impact of R'hllor, like even outside of Melisandre, but just like in general, because we always look at Bran and connection to the Great Other, possibly with the Three-Eyed Crow, and we don't view that with Daenerys, good or bad. Right. I mean, Daenerys gets her dragons here and she's going to, get her army and she's going to start beginning her conquest. And I mean, if you're somebody in Essos, you might be like where R'hllor is more popular. Do they view Daenerys as like a avatar?
Well, and every culture has their own mythological figures and prophecies and this and that. And I think George R. R. Martin's definitely playing with that in the series throughout it. One of the things that we're talking about R'hllor, we're talking about Dany, and we've kind of said that it almost feels like R'hllor can't see Dany, or Melisandre is not even factoring Dany into all this, which is really crazy because she is getting some messaging from something clearly. Like there's clearly real magic in the world. The only other place that we've seen this that I feel like is 100% like, okay, something's legitimately going on here that's magical and possibly from a god is the House of Black and White. So how does the House of Black and White tie in to R'hllor? Is it the same thing? I'm not sure.
I mean, the House of Black and White, I mean, I know we think R'hllor red, but fire could also be white, I suppose.
Yes.
I mean, what if the House of Black and White is this in between where they view like maybe that's what it is. They look at both gods as equals and their role is death.
Yeah, and who's
like
to say
in the middle? We serve both gods because at the end of the day, both gods are involved in death.
Yeah, it's another interesting thing I just thought about is like talking about like death, right? In the House of Black and White is like they have a pretty big stake in defeating the White Walkers because the White Walkers are kind of an abomination. If you think about like if they're raising the dead, it kind of goes against the Stranger and the House of Black and White and everything. I feel like the House of Black and White has to become extremely active in this battle against the White Walkers because without human race, there's no more death. Therefore, this god becomes, his utility is useless, right? That's I love the religions, and I love how ambiguous a lot of them are. I like the second part of this, Raven, when Adam says, what if George would have flipped this and R'hllor, whatever, and the god entity is actually working towards like what we would be considered an evil endpoint, and the White Walkers are actually part of the good guy side. I think I understand what he's getting at. And it's 100% something I could see George doing, because he doesn't really have a super favorable view on religion for the most part, from what I know as a person. And George R. R. Martin loves flipping things on its head, right? That's why me and you have been
Yes.
talking about the White Walkers a lot lately. And, who are they really? It's not going to be as simple as they're just big bads coming out of the ground. But if the lore is really an entity or a deity that is here to fight back against these things, why? Why is
Right.
that? Is it simply because he doesn't want the others to take away all of his loyal servants? Possibly. Maybe it's the same thing where like his utility as a deity is useless if they were to exterminate the human race. I'm not sure, but I do like the idea of maybe people were being used by gods for ends that aren't exactly good.